In this lesson, we'll add a few more details to our cylindrical base. So one thing that I want to add here is a channel on the back that we can have this handle coming out from, so that it can extend out horizontally and then also kind of click down into more of a traditional kind of a pistol sort of configuration. And so to do that, we need to figure out where we can extrude it out from. So we've got these polygons in the center that I think will serve as a nice area for that to extend out from. So we can select the polygons kind of all the way down to the bottom of where we want this channel to be. So I think probably that's a good range or area that we can kind of pull this out from. So let's go ahead and extrude and do a little bit of an offset. So we'll bring this in a little bit. Remember, in the past when we've created these sort of insets, we want to create a little bit of an edge going all the way around to hold that rather than just pushing it straight in. And that'll give us, as we're smoothing this, a little bit more of a sharp edge and defined edge around where that gets pushed in. And so let's go ahead now and repeat that extrude. We'll kind of push this in. And I want to have kind of a 2-level channel for the handle. So there'll be a kind of a larger channel here and then kind of a deeper channel where it actually connects into the inside of this piece. And that can be done either through extruding that in again, or through adding edge loops. So you can figure, or you can kind of decide whether, you know, which way you want to go, because if you add edge loops, that's going to sharpen up this piece. So it's kind of rounded right now, and if you wanted this to be a little bit more squared off, then you could go ahead and add edge loop, because if you add an edge loop in here to sharpen this, it's going to come right through here and sharpen up the bottom of that line, and actually go around the top and sharpen the top as well. So if you want that to be a little bit more sharp, you can do it that way. Let's say that we don't necessarily want that. Okay, and so let's go ahead and take those polygons, and to create our inner channel, we'll just do the same thing we just did. So we'll go ahead and do an extrude. We'll offset this a little bit, so something more like that. If we want to scale it a little bit in the Y to kind of extend that up, we can. Or another thing that we can do would be to take these points. If we wanted to kind of bring it up a little bit closer to here, we can start to move them along their normal, and that'll kind of move them along the surface. And we can do the same thing down here. Kind of move them back along there. So that's the outer border of it. I'll select those polygons again. And now, remember, we need to create this kind of holding edge. So we'll do another extrude with a little bit of an offset. Repeat that with the G key. We'll go ahead and add some thickness to it. Repeat again, and then we'll push it in a little bit further. Okay, now some of this is going to be soft because we didn't add any edges in here, but you can see we have this nice cool channel built into the back of our cylinder now. If you want to kind of tighten up an area, I actually don't know that I want to. I kind of like the way that it looks, but if you wanted to tighten it up, you could add edge loops along these corners to kind of tighten those areas up. But I actually like it the way that it is. All right, I want to add a little piece kind of coming off the top here as well. Okay, to kind of connect up this wire kind of area. So let's take these polygons kind of extending up to the back right here on the top. And I want it to be a little bit narrower. And so I could just take this and kind of scale it in a little bit, or I could extrude it, scale it in. Let's now extrude this, and let's extrude it up. So we'll add a little bit of thickness to it. Now at this point, I'm going to stop using these. I'm going to go ahead and change my manipulator, and I'm going to use this ring to rotate it. So I'm going to rotate it until these points are sort of back in here. Let me change my move to world, and I'll kind of move this forward and maybe scale a little bit, just so those back points almost line up with the points they came from. Okay, so you can see how that selection's been extruded up and then rotated. Now I want to merge this back into the body of this piece. Okay, so what we can do is use the merge tool, merge vertex tool, and I'll click on the vertex and then drag it to the one I want to snap it to, and it's actually merged those together. And do the same thing there. So now when I smooth this, I get this raised area that blends back into the surface. All right, I can also come in here and take this face, and we can add a little bit of an offset to it. Maybe repeat that, add a little bit of thickness there, go in with our insert edge loop tool and add some tightness to that. And then we can see what that looks like, and that gives us that sort of rounded opening that we're going to use to connect up this next piece. Okay, now if you want to come in, and if you want it, instead of kind of angling down, you want it to be a little bit more straightforward, we can kind of pull this back and up. So now that opening kind of faces forward a little bit more, and it blends seamlessly back into the cylindrical piece, and then we've also got our channel built there. All right, so it's all about just breaking things down and thinking about how things are built, and using the edges, the position of the edges to your advantage as far as, thinking about what detail that you need to create, and also thinking about, if you add an edge in one spot, what's that going to do to the rest of the model? In some cases, it may be fine. You may be able to reuse that. That's perfect. If you can use an edge loop to define the shape over here and use the same edge loop to define a different shape over here, that's great. That's a lot better than trying to use all these different edge loops to define different things and then trying to get them to work together when they don't, or they don't want to. All right, and so let's go ahead next and let's add this little kind of a wire piece coming out here to kind of something a little bit of smaller scale detail to kind of finish out the top part of this stun gun, and then we'll start to get into things like cables and some fun stuff like that. So we'll go ahead in the next lesson and work on this little wire up at the top.